Let's take a look at human relations skills. There are three myths about human relations. First, technical skills are more important than human relations skills. Second, it just makes common sense. And third, leaders are born, not made. Some people believe that a human relations or organizational behavior course is less important than more technical courses like computer science or accounting. Yes, technology and accounting are important, but it's people who develop the technology and the accounting methods. The job market's most sought after skills are people skills. Thus, management education is placing more emphasis than ever on people and leadership skill development. Some people believe that human relations is simple and just common sense. Do you always get along well with your family and friends and coworkers? No conflicts? If human relations is just common sense, then why don't we always get along? How do human relations affect your personal and job satisfaction? Developing good relationships is critical to personal and professional success, and that's a skill you can develop. Leadership skills are critical for success in today's business world. The question, are leaders born or made, has been researched over the years. Leadership experts generally agree that some people have more natural leadership ability, but that leadership skills can be developed. Regardless of your natural ability, you can develop your human relations skills. The term human relations means interactions among people. Organizations can't function without human relations. The goal of human relations is to create a win win situation by satisfying employee needs while achieving organizational objectives. A win win situation occurs when the organization and the employees both get what they want. When we wonder, what's in it for me, we're expressing what we want. When employees and organizations' goals align, performance tends to follow. The total person approach realizes that an organization employs the whole person, not just his or her job skills. It's important to understand the whole person. Holistic thinking helps us to better understand and work better with others. People play many roles throughout their lives, indeed, throughout each day. Behavior is what people do and say. Human relations fuels behavior. The three levels of behavior are individual, group, and organizational. Human relations takes place at the individual, group, and organizational levels. It is individuals, not large organizations, that drive progress. Group behavior consists of the things two or more people do and say as they interact. Individual behavior influences this group behavior. An organization is a group of people working to achieve one or more objectives. Organizations are created to produce goods and services for the larger society. If you've ever worked, you've been part of an organization. You also come into contact with organizations on a regular basis, such as when you go to the store, school, church, the post office, or the health club. As individuals and groups interact, their collective behavior constitutes the organization's behavior. Thus, organizational behavior is the collective behavior of an organization's individuals and groups. Throughout this course, you'll learn how human relations affects individual and group behavior, and the resulting effects on organizational performance. Performance is the extent to which expectations or objectives have been met. Performance levels are meaningful when compared to past performance or of the performance of others within or outside the organization. A system is a set of two or more interactive elements. The systems approach focuses on the whole system with an emphasis on the relationship between its parts. For our purposes, the organization's performance is based on the combined performance of each individual or group. To have high levels of performance, the organization must have high performing individuals and groups. Groups are the building blocks of the organization. The challenge to management is to develop a high performing individual and groups. In the same sense, individuals and groups are the foundation of an organization. If either is ineffective, the organization can't stand. Just as people are the foundation of the organization, behavior and human relations are the foundation of supporting performance. Properly called organizational behavior and rooted in the behavioral sciences, the science of human relations was developed in the late 1940s. It is based primarily on psychology, which attempts to determine why individuals behave the way they do, and sociology, which attempts to determine how group dynamics affect organizational performance. Social psychology, economics, and political science have also contributed to organizational behavior. During the 1950s, research in human behavior was conducted in large organizations. By the late 1970s, organizational behavior was recognized as a discipline in its own right, with teachers, researchers, and practitioners being trained in organizational behavior itself. Organizational behavior is a social science that was built in a knowledge base on a sound foundation of scientific theory and research. Human relations takes a practical, applied approach. It attempts to anticipate and prevent problems before they occur to solve existing problems of interpersonal relations in organizations. In early America, most people worked on farms and were self employed in occupations such as tailors, carpenters, shoemakers, and blacksmiths. Then, during the Industrial Revolution, people left the farms to work in factories that were privately owned. These businesses were concerned with profits, not employees, and managers viewed people only as a source of production. Most of the early owner managers gave little thought to the working conditions or health, safety, and other terms and conditions of employment for their employees. Frederick Taylor, an engineer known as the father of scientific management, focused on analyzing and redesigning jobs more effectively in the late 1800s and early 1900s, which led to the idea of mass production. Scientific managers focused on production, not people. They assumed that workers always acted rationally and were motivated simply by money. Also, Taylor failed to recognize the social needs of employees and placed them in isolated jobs. In 1800, Robert Owen was considered the first manager and entrepreneur to understand the need to improve the work environment and the employee's overall situation. In 1920, Owen was called the real father of personnel administration. He believed that profit would be increased if employees worked shorter hours, were paid adequately, and were provided with sufficient food and housing. He refused to employ children under the age of 11 and improved working conditions. Other entrepreneurs of the time did not follow his ideas. From the mid 1920s to the early 1930s, Elton Mayo and his associates from Harvard University conducted research at the Western Electric Hawthorne plant near Chicago. The research conducted through the Hawthorne studies has become a landmark in the human relations field. In fact, Elton Mayo is called the father of human relations. As a consequence of these studies, the Hawthorne effect was discovered. The Hawthorne effect refers to an increase in performance caused by special attention given to employees, rather than tangible changes in the work. During the research, Mayo changed the lighting and ventilation in a production facility. To his surprise, performance went up regardless of the working conditions. Through interviews, Mayo realized that the control group during the research felt important because of all the attention they got. Studies have shown that happy workers are usually, but not always, more productive than unhappy workers. During the Depression in the 1930s, unions gained strength and often forced management to look more closely at the human side of the organization and meet employees' needs for better working conditions, higher pay, and shorter hours. During the 1940s and 1950s, other major research projects were conducted in a number of organizations. Some of the research was conducted by the University of Michigan and the Ohio State University, both of which conducted studies in leadership and motivation. During the 1970s, interest in human relations peaked. By the late 1970s, the term human relations was primarily replaced with the more commonly used term organizational behavior. In the 1980s, the US rate of productivity was much lower than that of Japan. William Auchi discovered that a few particularly successful firms did not follow the typical US model. After years of research and investigation, Auchi developed Theory Z. Theory Z integrates common business practices in the United States and Japan into a middle ground framework appropriate for use in the United States. In the 1990s, the trend towards increased participation of employees as a means of improving human relations and organizational performance continued. This trend included greater levels of participation at the lowest levels of the organization. As a result, employees have more input into management decisions and how they perform their jobs. The use of groups and teams also became popular in the 1990s and continues today. We've discussed the history of human relations. Now let's briefly discuss its current and future trends and challenges. Chief executive officers rate globalization as the top challenge to business leadership in the 21st century. The trend towards globalization has clearly changed the speed at which and the way we do business today. Organizational behavior will continue to be an important factor in organizational performance and results. Organizations realize that generally happy and engaged workers do a better job. Work relationships form the foundation of an array of processes, such as how managers and employees lead and how we manage our careers. If you want to get ahead in an organization, it's important to do a good job, but it's also important that people like you. If people like you, they will forgive just about anything you do wrong. If they don't like you and you do everything right, it won't matter. Many hardworking, talented people have been bypassed for promotion and fired simply because their bosses and other high level managers didn't like them. People who are optimistic and grateful for what they have and focus on the good things in their lives are happier, healthier, and less stressed. Ungrateful people tend to be dissatisfied with what they have and are never happy because no matter how much they get, it's never enough. People generally don't like to listen to others complain. People often avoid complainers, and you should too. Associating with complainers only depresses you. Don't go around criticizing, like putting people down, condemning, or spreading rumors. It leads to less positive organizational interactions and lower performance. Think about your favorite boss and friends. One of the reasons you like them is that they show a genuine interest in you. One of the reasons people fail is the "it's all about me" syndrome. People who feel as though you don't care about them will not come through for you. What is really important is to be able to truly care about other people and to sacrifice for them. A smile shows interest and caring. When we smile, we feel happier, and when we feel angry, we act and we tend to hurt relationships. Has anyone ever smiled and it's made you happier? Well, pass it on. Develop a sense of humor, relax, laugh, and enjoy yourself. Likable people do their best to not take themselves too seriously. Calling people by name shows interest in them and makes them feel important. One simple technique you can use to help you remember people's names when you're introduced to them is to call them by name 2 or 3 times while talking to them. If you forget a person's name, whenever possible, ask someone else what it is before contacting the person. Remember that in some cultures, however, it's not polite to call a person by his or her first name. In such a culture, use last names, titles, or positions as expected. The ability to listen is an important skill. We learn more by listening than when we do talking. Show respect for the other person's opinions. When you're wrong, admit it quickly. Admitting you're wrong is not a sign of weakness, it's often interpreted as a strength. If you want to help yourself, you can do so by helping others. It's a basic law of success. Open and honest relationships in which people help each other meet their needs usually are the best ones. Help others, but don't pry when help's not welcomed. Feel your emotions, but control your behavior. Try not to do and say things that you'll regret later. Before you say and do things, talk about possible consequences. Conduct your human relations in a positive way. We all sometimes do or say things that offend or hurt others in some way. To truly repair relationships, the best starting point is to admit mistakes and give a sincere apology. We need to do our best not to repeat the offense. It only takes a minute to express regret, and apologizing can help develop, maintain, and repair human relations. Human relations is all about how we behave and treat others. The goal of human relations is to create win win situations. The best way to get what you want is to help other people get what they want, and vice versa. Human relations problems often occur when the psychological contract is not met. The psychological contract is the shared expectations between people. At work, you have expectations of the things your boss and coworkers should and should not do, and they in turn have expectations of you. As long as expectations are met, things will go well. However, if expectations are not met, human relations problems occur. Thus, when people share information and negotiate expectations, have clear roles, and are committed to meeting others' expectations, things will go well. When you encounter a human relations problem, you have to decide whether to avoid the problem or to solve it. In most cases, it's advisable to solve human relations problems rather than ignore them. Problems usually get worse rather than solve themselves. When you decide to resolve a human relations problem, you have at least three alternatives. Let's take a look. First, change the other person. A surefire way to become unhappy is to assume that life is fair and that other people will change at your request. Whenever there's a human relations problem, it's easy to blame others and expect them to make necessary changes in behavior to meet your expectations. In reality, few problems can be blamed entirely on one party. Blaming the other party without taking some responsibility usually results in resentment and defensive behavior. Second, change the situation. If you have a problem getting along with others at work, you can try to change the situation by asking for a change in jobs. There are cases where this is the only solution. However, when you complain to the boss may decide that you, not the other party, is the problem. Blaming the other party and trying to change the situation enables you to ignore your own behavior, which may be at least a part of the problem. Third, change yourself. Knowing yourself is an important in good human relations through self assessment. In many situations, your own behavior is the only thing you can control. In most human relations problems, the best alternative is to examine others' behavior and try to understand why they are doing and saying the things they are. Then examine your own behavior to determine why you're behaving the way you are. In most cases, the logical choice is to change your own behavior. But that doesn't mean doing whatever other people request. In fact, you should be assertive. You're not being forced to change. Rather, you're changing your behavior because you elect to do so. When you change your behavior, others may also change. If you can't change your mind and embrace the change, you can't change anything. The first step is to realize the need to take a positive attitude about changing our behavior and develop positive habits in improving our relationships. It helps to realize that our brains cling to a habit at the exclusion of all else, including common sense. To finalize the importance of human relations, if you don't like working with people and don't want to improve your people skills, it will most likely hurt your career progression. If you like working with people and you think that you're good at it, as standards continue to increase, you'll need to continually improve. Changing our behavior and habits is not easy or comfortable, but people are critical to personal and professional happiness and success. So, make it a habit to apply what you learn in this course to develop your people skills.